A Como Mai, Curtain Call, a weekly program of reviews, previews, interviews, and features of and with the great art and artists on Maui and beyond. I'm Paul James Brown. Before I begin, I have to say something about the outstanding concert by Clayton Stephensonʻs, a finalist in the Van Cliburn piano competition, on Friday at the Castle Theater. Mr. Stephensonʻs program was perfect. The opening was the Four Impromptus by Franz Schubert. I was particularly impressed with the opening movement in C minor. Mr. Stephensonn seemed to caress the keys, and the entire movement was glorious. After intermission, he did Stravinsky's three movements of Petrushka, virtuosically, then Over the Rainbow by Harold Arlen and Keith Jarrett. I was disappointed it didn't open up with the verse, but I can't blame him for that. That was Keith Jarrett's choice. It was another slow and very quiet work. He concluded his program with Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, a superlative performance featuring some inventive improvisations. The audience insisted on a Hana Ho, and he did The Tom and Jerry Show, a jazzy number by Hiromi Uehara. They demanded another, and Mr. Stephensonn obliged with a nice Fats Waller-esque version of Tea for Two. He is a marvelous, sensitive, and accomplished artist who is an engaging and knowledgeable host. His anecdotal introductions of the works were informative and added to the pleasure of the concert. Go to his website, ClaytonStephensonn.com, to see his upcoming schedule of events. Baldwin High School Performing Arts Learning Center and Baldwin Theater Guild are presenting Disney and Cameron McIntosh's Mary Poppins, the Broadway Musical, with original music and lyrics by Richard M. and Robert B. Sherman, with book by Julian Fellows, with new songs and additional music and lyrics by George Stiles and Anthony Drew, directed by Linda Carnavale at the auditorium of Baldwin High School on Ka'aumanu Avenue in Wailuku on Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. The theme of this show is people are more important than money. Boy, don't we need that message today. If you're feeling bereft at the state of affairs, go and see this exceptionally beautiful and marvelously performed production. It will lift your spirits, give you hope for the future, and cause you to skip out of the theater wanting to fly a kite. This is the story of the Banks family. The patriarch, George Michael Berrigan, is a no-nonsense dad who has been damaged by the nanny he had when he was a boy, and he is stern and standoffish. He tells his wife, Winifred Dakota Ozoa, the night I saw it, "You will see Arlie Mae Tabasula. She is in charge of the domestic matters, and he makes the money." When the story opens, their nanny is storming out the door, much to the delight of the children, Jane, Lila Alvarez, and Michael, Thea Sajabo. When their maid, Mrs. Brill, Makani Kaiha'ali'i, suggests they place an ad in the paper, Jane and Michael have the qualifications they want written out, and they share it in the adorable Perfect Nanny, to which George is not impressed and throws the paper in the fireplace. The next thing you know, in comes Mary Poppins, Maile Libonati, with the ad in her hand, to George and Winifred's astonishment. She sings practically perfect and takes the children in hand, bringing them to the park where Bert, Samantha Dye, and everyone, including the statues, celebrate Mary Poppins in Jolly Holiday. George and Winifred are having a difficult time, and George tells her she needs to curry favor with the right people. She plans a tea party, and the cake is being prepared by Mrs. Brill. She's called away, and Jane decides she can do it. They make a big mess and cause one of the servants, Robertson I, Tennyson Takahama, the night I saw it, but you will see Alex Angel Dorson, to lose consciousness when everything in the kitchen collapses. Mary arrives in the midst of this debacle and promptly begins to magically put everything back together with a spoonful of sugar. We enter George's world in the bank, where George decides to fund a coal mine and sings A Man Has Dreams. Then the bird woman, who is not identified in the program, but I think you may recognize, sings a lovely rendition of Feed the Birds. Poppins brings the kids to Mrs. Corey's, Holly Cooper Lewis, and we get a rousing and colorful supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. The children are so excited about their excursions with Mary Poppins, but George doesn't share their enthusiasm as he blames them for his suspension from the bank and sends them to their room where, in an altercation between the siblings, one of their toys is broken. Poppins comes in, and suddenly the toys come to life and do playing the game. The first act ends with Bert and Mary singing Chim Chim Cheree, and Mary, her job complete, returns from whence she came. The winds have changed. Will the Banks lose their property on Cherry Lane and end up poor and houseless? Who will come to take Mary Poppins' place? Will she return? You must go and see this outstanding production to find out. Maile Libonati is Mary Poppins. Her posture, attitude, command, strict disciplinarian while genuinely caring and loving Jane and Michael were pure perfection. She handled the singing effortlessly and with excellence, and her dancing, especially in Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and Step in Time, in those high-heeled boots, was breathtaking. One of the concluding songs in the show is Anything Can Happen If You Let It. I have no doubt Ms. Libonati is capable of realizing those prophetic words fully and completely. She is very special. As Bert, Samantha Dyer knew who this character was and gave us a Bert who was clever, caring, and knowing. Ms. Dyer led us through the ins and outs of the story with confidence, and all of the songs Ms. Dyer performed in, and there were 10 out of the 24 in the show, were a pleasure. Excellent work. Lila Alvarez's Jane was spunky, bratty, sharp, and fun. She is another among the plethora of very good singers musical director Tana Larson brought to the stage. Taya Shajalbo's Michael was a worthy adversary to her sister, and their acrimony was one of the clearest engines in the story. Every play needs a hero, and Michael Berrigan's George is an unlikely suspect, but his transformation from the workaholic banker with a tortured childhood to the loving and caring father and husband he became was a delight to behold. Dakota Ozoa played Winifred in 2 of the 5 shows. Unlike the film, The Suffragette story is not in this production. Winifred is a victim of the discrimination against women rampant in the early years of the 20th century. She is expected to support her husband unfailingly and be the mistress of the home and keeper of all that is domestic. Ms. Ozoa, in her best moment, resolved to defend her husband in his time of distress in the plaintive ballad Being Mrs. Banks. It was beautiful. Colin Saletti is the evil nanny, Miss Andrews, whose appearance at the Cherry Lane residence causes George to flee. Her treatment with brimstone and treacle is near to abuse. She also plays the owner of the coal mine, Northbrook. These characters are the personification of evil and good, respectively, and to have one actor portray both of them so convincingly is an outstanding achievement. The other star of this show is the ensemble. They appear as park visitors, customers, and workers in Mrs. Corey's shop, kite flyers, chimney sweeps, and statues. They sing and dance splendidly throughout the show, and their presence is indispensable. Linda Carnavale did a great job casting this show. There are nearly 30 named characters who appear in 24 scenes. The set design by Carol Walker was great. Here is a cavalcade of the spectacular scenes. Some of the projections were animated. Ms. Walker designed sets that came on and off stage and dropped in seamlessly, and all of the set changes were swift and obviously meticulously choreographed. Speaking of choreography, Kathleen Shields had the job to make non-dancers look like a Broadway company, and she achieved in the huge numbers by giving them simple movements. They could perform perfectly, and then when she got to the duet in Jolly Holiday, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and Step in Time, she pulled out all the stops and demonstrated the skill, grace, and athleticism this ensemble and cast were capable of. Oh, and Ms. Schultz was also the costumier for this show. It was so well done. Mary Poppins looked like she was in the Broadway show. Jane's and Winifred's outfits were pure vintage, and the ensemble looked terrific. This was not just a well-acted, danced, and sung show, but it looked great. Excellent work by everyone involved. My one wish, and you've all heard it before, is live music. They have an excellent music department, and there is a pit orchestra course whose syllabus says, quote, "This course is designed to provide orchestral music for the Performing Arts Learning Center's musicals," unquote. So, Why are we having tracks for the musicals? You have 3 more chances to catch this beautiful, excellent, uplifting production of Mary Poppins, the Broadway Musical, at the auditorium of Baldwin High School. Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 3. Go and support these hard-working artists and have a great time at the theater. I guarantee you will leave there singing "Let's Go Fly a Kite" or "Anything Can Happen." Tickets are available for purchase half an hour before curtain. Well, that's Curtain Call for this week. Mahalo nui loa for joining me. I'm Paul James Brown. Maui strong. Ahui ho.